Hi everyone, my name is Emma Kuchler and I'm here with Kyra Laster and we are two of the marketing interns for the 2020 Virtual Detroit Dance City Festival. Today we are interviewing Renee Dempsey of Rivvren and she performed in this festival at the Rivera Court Stage. Renee, would you like to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your group, about what you performed?
Hi, I'm Renee. I am one part of the duo Rivvren, and today I guess I can talk about what we do and what we performed. Basically, Rivvren is a performance duo that's a collaboration between myself, Renee Dempsey, and my musician friend Dan Kozlowski, who goes by River. And we basically tried to bridge any gaps between music and dance and try to just like overlap it even more, trying to create dancing and music that can just interlap or overlap and intertwine even more. We're trying to see if we can create a piece where there's dancing inspired by the music or music inspired by the dancing, but also trying to collaborate in creating entire pieces. So we've done a couple of shows and we're eventually going to work up to get to our own performance. That's our goal. But for what we performed recently, that was called The Work, and it's inspired by the work and the effort that you put in towards like finding that self-fulfillment or finding like that enlightenment in yourself, like not from any other source, but kind of like working towards something on your own in yourself. So there's a lot of movement that's repetitive that I do over and over again, and the music is inspired by my own voice and by Dan's voice as well. So it's very connected. It's very centered on like what's happening in the moment. It's a very it's live oriented. It's one of those things that we do every time, and it's specific to every performance that we've done for it. So that's basically what our piece is about.
That's amazing. So can you elaborate a little bit on like the creative process for you guys? Since like he creates the music, you create the movement, like how does that all work?
Yeah, so we've kind of like done a couple different processes in trying to create our pieces. We've created 3 different pieces, and then we're working on a 4th one right now. And it's been a little bit of experimentation on how we can get this music and dance to go together, because traditionally dance doesn't exist without music. Like that's just one of the things like that happens a lot, but we're also experimenting with sounds and different soundscapes and the way that I can create the music as well as the musician. So for our process in creating our works, we've been doing a lot of improvisations, where the music might be inspired by a movement that I make, or where I might be inspired by some music that he makes or sound that he makes. And we kind of go back and forth like that. We're not afraid to like really try something new that doesn't sound like it's been done before. That's what we're trying to do, is like experiment with sound and movement that hasn't really been done before. But our kind of process is a lot of improvisation, but we have like brainstorming sessions. We've had to do a lot of them on Zoom or on Skype, and And so it's been a lot of just talking through ideas, talking through what we want to do, what our goal is, what inspires us. And then we come up with an idea or like several ideas, and sometimes I have to, stop us, and I'm like, all right, that's too many ideas, I need to take a break. But that's basically how it goes.
That's awesome. It's so cool to see how much like innovation can come out of collaboration with dance and music, because there's really just infinite possibilities. So that's really cool. You kind of have already touched on this a little bit, but what is it like choreographing and creating during this COVID time? I mean, you were saying you kind of work over Zoom. Like, how does that feel compared to being in a studio or in a space?
So I have a home studio in my basement, and I've had that for several years, and so I've been able to work on my own for a while. And when I started working with Dan over a year ago, we were able to, he would come over here, and then like if we didn't need to like rehearse or anything, I would go over to his house, and we would like go over like some ideas, or we would like play with the music. But since COVID hit and everything went into quarantine, we started out for the first several months because a lot of shows were just canceling. I mean, everything was just either postponing for months later, or they were canceling, and so we didn't really have anything to work on right away. We just met over Skype, kind of just got or just talked about like what we had missed in each other's lives, and because we're good friends too. And so it was kind of difficult because we couldn't do the same thing. Like I couldn't listen to the music because, it's hard to hear it through a source. Like it doesn't really go very well. And then he couldn't just listen or look at his screen and watch me the whole time. Like it just wouldn't work out as easy as we would have wanted. So we didn't rehearse for a couple of months. And then when things kind of settled down, I started having him come back over here, and we've worked on some things. But with it like coming back up in our lives, or having little scares here and there of like, oh my God, does this person have it, or like this person's immunocompromised or whatever. Like we've had to keep our distance recently, even after performing in the Rivera Court, which was really cool. But we're glad like how safe it was and everything based on the circumstances.
Mm-hmm. So is this your first time participating in DDCF?
Yeah, this actually was my first time. Okay, actually I take that back. I alone did a performance with like a couple other dancers. Like Dan wasn't a part of this, but he did. This was his first time technically. Like together it was our first time, but I did a performance with Contexture a couple of years ago, Tracy Halloran's company. And that was a really cool experience. It was in like the actual theater in the DIA, that big theater, I don't know what it's called, but it was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot, and I got to see some cool dances. But this is my first time like performing a work that I created and collaborated with. So this was like our first time doing it together and performing in the Rivera Court. So it was really fun, even if there wasn't a live audience. I mean, there still technically was a live audience. There were people watching, so it was still a unique experience for those people. But it was different.
Yeah. As a performer, comparing it to your past performance at DDCF, how was it different? How did it feel different, like performing in a whole different space, watching yourself after the fact on YouTube in the live stream, compared to being in the stage in the theater with the audience, doing it live right there, seeing that connection with the audience, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So it was very different. I still felt like, I was still putting on a show because I knew that it was going to be recorded and put up live, or it was going to be streamed on YouTube. And it like I said before, it still felt like there was a performance happening, because like anytime there's someone other than myself or Dan in the room, it's still like a performance that's happening. Like, to have another viewer is to have another person that's participating in the experience. So it was very different not having a whole room of people, but it's just what's going on right now. And I thought it was still pretty cool because I did get to see it, and I was able to like send out the link and everything and tell people about it. And that was cool. And now I have like a place where I can like send a link and say like, oh, look it up at, I don't know if the time is like the same on the video. I tried to send it to someone at one point and they're like, well, I'm at this time frame that you told me and it's not the same as, it's not you. And I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. But, that's just kind of what we're doing right now. That's just how it goes. Like, I was super excited that this was still happening, considering that everything's like being shut down or postponed, or just, they're waiting another year or two. I was super excited that we were gonna be able to perform. And again, even if we performed for like, I think it's like 8 minutes long, and then we had to put our masks on right away. Like, it didn't matter to me that we were doing that. That's just what's going on, and we just have to adapt and make things happen for us if we still want to be in this business.
So how is it different being a performer a couple years ago and now being a choreographer, like an artist actually in the show?
It felt a lot more personal. I've always loved dancing for other people and like being a part of someone else's creative process, and like being able to help them out when necessary and just be a dancer for another choreographer. Like, that's always something very fulfilling. But I've been experimenting with my own work lately, and it feels really, really good to have had my work in this show and a part of this experience, because it is more personal. It's me. That's a part of me that I'm expressing. And so it's an art piece that I'm able to share with people. So that's basically, it's just that it's way more personal and it's way more intimate. It's just a piece that I'm presenting. I want to share to other people.
That's awesome. Awesome. Kyra, do you have any more questions for Renee?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. Renee, do you have anything else you want to share about your experience with the festival, your work, anything, the Detroit dance community before we finish off?
Well, I do want to invite listeners or viewers of this to check out Rivvren on YouTube, because we have this new series called Mindfulness Breaks, and it's basically, we've only got one video up right now. It's been a challenge, especially with like school and stuff, but we are trying to promote mindfulness and the collaboration between sound and movement again, but this time it's like a movement and improv based mindfulness meditation for anybody listening who's able to get up and do some simple movements and able to engage. And so that's something that I definitely want to share. But thank you.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great thing to check out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Renee, for meeting with us today. It's great to hear about Rivvren and everything that you guys are doing and what your experience was. Everyone should definitely head over to DetroitDanceCityFestival.com to click on our YouTube page, where you can rewatch Renee and Dan's performance and all of the other awesome events and performances that occurred at DDCF 2020. And we are so excited to be doing this interview series and connecting with all of our artists. And we are so excited to keep promoting and sharing the Detroit dance community.